Welcome to PTV World's special transmission on the Leaders in Islamabad Business Summit. The theme for this summit is Imagining the Unimaginable. I would like to introduce my guests in the studio who are attending this conference. First of all, we have Axel Gutals. He's the CEO of the European Institute for Asian Studies from Brussels. Then we have Ethna Trainer. She's the international broadcaster from Ireland. And then we have Ali Akhai, who is the chairman of the Martin Dow Pharmaceutical Company. Thank you very much for being in our studios today. Axel, I'll start with you. First of all, tell us about your experience visiting Pakistan.
Well, the first time I came to Pakistan, I think it was in 1973. I've seen Pakistan, the evolution going on, and I think, well, I'm quite impressed with the latest evolutions, I would say, on the development, or economic development also. You have an enormous potential, and you have a very young new population, a new generation of youngsters which have been grown up with the smartphone revolution, which will change, I think, very much Pakistan society. Although you also have still your traditional Asian values, but combining it with modern technological developments, I think you have a huge potential. But 2 days ago, Your Excellency Minister for Foreign Affairs Qureshi, he was also in this conference giving a speech, and in his speech he mentioned a fact that he wants to focus on economic diplomacy. And I think that's a very wise approach, because I think there is a lot of work to be done on the perception of Pakistan outside Pakistan. I'm from Europe, and I think in Europe the problem is people live still and think in stereotypes of Asia 10, 20 years ago. But Asia today is completely different from 5 years ago, and that's also the case for Pakistan. So I think it should be very important to give, I would say, to work on the perception, on a different image of really new economic potential, I would say new Pakistan, to give, to work on new collaborations, investments, working on exchanges of and collaboration on scientific innovation, R&D research.
I think, Axel, you have really hit the nail on the head, because Pakistan, unfortunately, has got a bad rap around the world. The perception of Pakistan is completely opposite of what Pakistan really is. It's a beautiful country with hospitable people, and we love peace. It's a peace-loving nation. Ethna, you've also been visiting Pakistan earlier on, and share with us your experiences and your observations about Pakistan.
Thank you so much. And while I've been here over the years, I've really seen, I think this time there's been a break of a few years since I've been here. And I've really seen much more, I think, joy in the country, particularly among the people I've seen. I've been very, very impressed, particularly at this Leaders in Pakistan Summit, Leaders in Islamabad, but I think it's also about leaders in Pakistan. And really, I think the encouraging words from the Prime Minister and from the President, and we had the honour to actually have an address by both of them, have been hugely encouraging. And when we see the leaders of the country actually very publicly make statements about the change that they want to see, this is very empowering to particularly the youth in the country. Just what Axel said here, the youth is a very, very different generation than has ever been here in Pakistan before. They're internationally connected, they have different desires, they know what they can achieve, whereby perhaps 20, 50 years ago that knowledge was not there. The same in any country. You look at Ireland 50 years back, it was one of the poorest countries in Europe. You look at it today, it's a very confident, a very lively country, and it's a very prosperous country. So while we can't compare both, this is a very big country, I think we can actually see that there has been transformations in other countries, and all of, particularly the young people, I think, should look and grasp this momentum. I think this is what's also incredibly important. You know, this needs a huge national movement, and it needs it from the youth particularly, and from all of the business community. I think the business community has a huge role to play in this, to actually be delivering headlines in terms of being, you know, profitable, being progressive, and being transparent and being very honest. These are the headlines we need to see in Pakistan. As an international journalist, believe me, we've seen Pakistan, and I've watched it perhaps making the headlines for the wrong
reasons,
cases,
absolutely.
the wrong reasons. And now I think it's time to, I've worked at Bloomberg and CNBC, you know, and CNN Business, my colleague has been here. We need to see good business, you know, making these headlines. And when that happens, I think then we see a lot more investment come in, we see more job creation, we see higher education, and the transformation. It all comes into one.
We would be very grateful for people like you to come and show the world the true and real face of Pakistan. Well, moving forward, Ali, you could possibly be the youngest CEO that I've at least met in Pakistan. Talk to us about your vision and how this business summit is important for developing the youth, and how you expect the government to come forward and support them in their endeavors.
Well, first of all, thank you for that compliment. Secondly, I would like to, before I tell you about this summit, I would like to tell you the history behind it and why was this started. This is actually the 3rd edition of the Business Summit. It was co-founded with the Nutshell Forum, Asfar Ehsan, and my father, Mohammad Javed Akhai, who is the founding chairman of Martindale. Unfortunately, he's not with us right now. He passed away last year, but his vision, his legacy is being continued. And the reason behind this summit was to show people, especially the people who are not in Pakistan, foreigners, the true potential of Pakistan. Last year we had around 20 foreign delegates. We thrice the amount of people we have in this 3rd edition. We have 60 foreign delegates from 25 different nationalities. And again, the reason was to show that Pakistan has the potential for growth, and Pakistan can be the next powerhouse in the coming years. As far as the youth is concerned, as Atna said, that they are capable, but I feel their capabilities need to be channeled. The drivers are missing, and we as businessmen are working with them. We are trying to educate them. Martindale is involved in various CSR activities, providing education to people who are not being able to afford it, and that's our focus. As far as the government is concerned, I feel the government right now is very positive towards change and prosperity. In the opening inaugural session, Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi was there, Sayyid Zulfikar Bukhari was there, who's the Minister for Overseas Pakistanis. Both of them were very positive. They were looking to collaborate with all of us, and they were very happy to see that businessmen and the private sector is working towards this, although it's not their responsibility to, let's be honest here, but still we feel like it is our responsibility because we are a patriotic organization. My father
you spoke about giving back to the community and serving the community as well. So if you'd like to talk a bit about that vision that comes from your father.
Well, Martindale was founded by my father, and he believed it's very important to give back to the community. There are 2 sectors in which we do CSR. First is health, and the second is education. If I tell you a few of the activities we have, my father graduated from IBA actually, so we made a healthcare center for people in IBA and around IBA that they can come there. They can not only the physical needs of a medical person, but psychological as well. So we have a psychologist also over there who can, because there is a pressure when you are studying.
Right.
And if someone gets injured, so we have doctors over there also. Plus we are collaborating with
it's a more holistic approach towards health.
Exactly. So we are collaborating with ED as well. Then when it comes to education, we have established a school in Korangi, which is the Martindale campus. It's a Hilal public school, and around 600 students are getting education free of cost over there.
All right, I'll come back to you again, for further projects that you're working on. But let's get Axel's view on Pakistan. Tell us, Axel, that what do you see as Pakistan's greatest potential?
I would say you have a very diverse economy, but nobody in Europe really is aware about it. Take Sialcott. The majority of surgical instruments is made in Sialcott, but the marketing happens by multinational brands. The leather industry in Sialcott is making nearly the huge majority of footballs. But who knows in the world that footballs are made in Sialcott? Nobody. It's just a small example. You are in fact part of a global supply chain, but nobody knows what's the part of Pakistan in this global supply chain. So I think it's very important now that the branding of Pakistan's economic potential is, I would make, made more known in the world. But I think also we see already a change also from the European Union. You see an opening already, and I think there are a lot of efforts now being made by the European Union. I think there is very soon a visit of Mrs. Mogherini coming, and I think there is also a strong focus from the European Union and the institutions on education collaboration, which is very important. And it's not only on skill development, it's not only on vocational education, but it's also very important on higher education. Because there, I think, you also need to work on the really top potentials of your society.
Absolutely, but not just higher education. I would say even primary education is a field that we would like, all the help that we can get, because primary education is suffering in Pakistan at the moment. We want to make sure that all our children in Pakistan are going to school, and I think that's really important. If you'd like to talk about that aspect or any other aspect that you think is important to highlight Pakistan's image in the world.
Well, I think just what Axel is saying, and indeed what you said too about education, and particularly education from the grassroots. I think this is actually essential when it comes to combating poverty in particular. I was very, very encouraged by the words of your president when he talked about also empowering women and girls and bringing them into society and making sure that they have a very clear role and a very important role. Looking at education at a very, very basic level, I think when, particularly in rural areas, when the young girls are brought into the educational system, this, empowers not alone those young girls, it empowers the families. And I think we see it around the world, particularly in poorer rural areas. When the children are learning, they in turn sometimes teach maybe the grandparents, the parents that didn't have the advantage of education. But education is the open door, I think, to help eradicate poverty, and it is absolutely essential. I think the focus on it is very, very important. I think also, what Ali was talking about, the role of the corporates, and you mentioned maybe that it wasn't quite the responsibility, but that your company took it as a responsibility. I think all of the private companies in this country need to step up and really take that responsibility. And I'm very encouraged by what you say in terms of taking a role here, because it has to be a public-private partnership. Exactly. The government cannot do everything, and it shouldn't have to do everything. And when I think it sees, private business taking a role and giving good jobs, good paying jobs, jobs that are maybe bringing back some of the diaspora here that want to come back because they can have a good career, they can have a good life. And ultimately, we see it around the world. What do people want? They want a good job, they want a good life for their family, they want a nice house, they want education, the basics of life. And I think the people in Pakistan are no different than the people around the world. And once that happens, and they can see that, and they can trust the government, and they can trust business to run honest business, and to actually make sure that they have a role, and they have a future. This is ultimately, I think, what will make a big shift. It's very much about the mind shift as well.
It's fantastic what you're talking about. I agree with you 100%. In fact, it's a big challenge globally for women to take on patriarchy, and we've seen that happening.
Yeah, it's not just in Pakistan.
Not just Pakistan. It's all
still
over
around the world.
Absolutely.
We're still
that glass ceiling still needs to be breached.
Yes.
Well, Ali, what do you think, or what would you hope to achieve from this particular summit? What is the end goal? Of course, it is to highlight Pakistan and also to show a clearer, purer, truer vision, image of Pakistan. But beyond that, what do you see?
Well, if you ask me, the end goal is to bring in investors to to give the world the message that Pakistan is full of potential.
And it's
It is
open
an-
for business.
Yeah, it's open for business. It's an emerging economy. Over the past few years, we had some situations, but credit goes to the army. They handled it in a great manner, and they had the capability and they did it. And now we can say that the bad time is over, and now we are open for business, as you said. And see, this year 60 people came. Out of those, more than 20 were just investors, and they were looking to invest in IT. A few of the companies CEOs approached me that we should collaborate together. Some of them were talking about AI, blockchain. These are the topics that have never been touched in Pakistan, and I believe that's the next big thing one should focus on. If you look at
I think that's a very good point and a very important one
Yeah.
that you've touched on, especially AI. When you talk about AI, we talk about people losing their jobs because computers will be used to do all those things. And in a country and an economy like Pakistan, it's very important that we take this very seriously. Axel, would you like to comment on this aspect of how should we train our future generations and our youth to their attitude towards knowledge and their attitude towards making it into a productive endeavor? What are your views on that?
I would say, look, there is always an approach of sensation seekers and the doom prophets. It's of course good for a certain kind of business, but I would say let's go for another message. And I think education, first of all, is, I think, the best investment on the long term for a country, for a society. And I would like to add to what His Excellency Minister Qureshi was saying, economic diplomacy. You also could go for education diplomacy. Those are, I would say, very positive, constructive approaches really for the future, for the development of Pakistan.
That's very true. In fact, that's something that we've lost along the way. We used to have educational diplomacy. Many people from across the world would come to Pakistan for higher education, but unfortunately that has changed. But moving forward, in your opinion, Ethna, do you think that Pakistani society has opened up over the years that you've been observing Pakistani society, since you've been coming here for a long time? Do you see changes on the grassroots level in the attitudes of the people that you interact with?
I'm beginning to see a lot more hope in the people, but I think Pakistan has a bit of a legacy of 5 steps forward, 3 steps back. And I think they've been let down so much. And I do think the international community is looking at this new government, with, open our eyes. And this government is certainly also, opening up. And there's great talk going on. The rhetoric is wonderful. What we really, really need to see now, we need to see the action. And this action has to be seen in terms of political action. It's also got to be seen in terms of business action, economic availability. There was talk too about opening up this country. Not alone should foreign educators come in, this country should be just flooded with tourists from around the world. Just look at this country. It's absolutely so beautiful. Mm-hmm. And when you look at the amount of income that come in from tourism, the amount of jobs, I mean, yes, there has to be new digital economy and all of that stuff. But you look at the pride in other countries around the world. The craft industries are being revived. You look at the villages, what they can do. You look at all the entrepreneurs that can actually create business, that rural communities can thrive and they can survive and stay alive. All of this is very important because it can't be just about big business in the city. This is a huge country and it has to be, evenly distributed if it can do that. But I think there's tremendous potential here for tourism. You look at the numbers. I live in the UAE, and you look at just the billions of dollars they bring in nothing but tourism. Now that's an area, that people underestimate sometimes. But people should be hiking these mountains. There should be ski resorts here. If they can charge so much money in beautiful Switzerland and all these lovely countries here, you've got better mountains.
Absolutely.
So
we have the best natural resources available to anybody that anybody can hope for, in fact.
We've got to look wider. You know, there's so much potential here.
Baby steps, I say. Moving forward, we had a new visa policy announced by the Prime Minister yesterday, and since we're talking about promoting tourism, that's also very much the reason why we have a new visa policy. What would you like to say about that initiative by the government?
I think that's a very good step. It's a first step, though. There's a long way to go, just because it's a pilot project. Yeah, there'll be a few bugs. You know, there'll be a teething process that's going to take through. But it's a very good initiative. At least, you know, I have got people who like foreign businessmen who are partners with me. It takes a lot of effort and time just to get the visa.
Right.
And if that is gone, you know, one of them, then it'll be easier for them to come and see the potential, see what business we are doing, and it helps to create strategic partnerships with other companies and different countries. Right now, Martin Dow is working with 6 different companies across the globe, all of them multinational, and it's difficult for them to get a visa.
Right.
But as this initiative has happened, I'm sure that it will be easier for them to come to Pakistan, and because every time we have to have a meeting, it's either we have to wait a month or we go to Dubai.
Right.
So I believe
this is a very, very important initiative,
definitely,
especially for the business community.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not only going to help tourism, but it's also going to help the business community and people who want to come into Pakistan and seek new opportunities. So it's a very good initiative.
And by extension, create newer and more important strategic partnerships across the world. And I think that's a very good point that you raised, and I hope that the government takes it seriously. And also the fact that people now take this opportunity and apply for Pakistani visas and also come and start visiting Pakistan. Axel, in your opinion, how can we promote Pakistan's image in the sense that people should start coming and visiting Pakistan? Tell us about your experience. Why would you like to come back here again?
Well, you know, I've been bitten by the Asian microbe long time ago. And once, there is no medicine against that.
As yet.
But I don't need a medicine against it, on the contrary.
Excellent.
And I would say, look, you're on with Pakistan, you're really on the crossroads. You're part of the old Silk Road, you are becoming part of the new Silk Road. There's a lot of new initiatives for connectivity, and I see that Pakistan is taking part in it, taking initiatives with it. There is a lot of work, I would say also, and I think that's the advantages perhaps of this new technological developments like fintech, which is digitalization, also service industry. There are no physical borders anymore with service industry technologies, fintech technologies. And what we have seen here in this conference, I was really impressed and amazed by the new startups here in Pakistan with a strong focus on this fintech, digitalization and services. I think that's the way for Pakistan to go forward, taking part in really the technologies and economic sectors for the future.
Well, when we are on the subject of business, I'm going to ask you a question which is slightly, on the side of what we're really talking about, and that is Brexit. And since you are from Ireland, what do you think about that? Just very briefly, because we're all interested and we think that it is going to affect business all over the world. A lot of Pakistani companies do business in the UK. So we would like to know, what is your opinion about this entire mess?
An entire mess. I mean, when you mention Brexit to an Irish woman, you're in trouble here, because we are in trouble. And we have this wonderful island of Ireland, and then we got that bit up in the top that the British left, that legacy of just non-stop issues and more issues and more issues. And it has probably become one of the biggest stumbling blocks. I mean, right now, when you look at what happened as a result of, David Cameron at the time allowing that vote to go through, and why? I mean, we have to look at politicians sometimes in terms of their short-term gain. And this was about giving the people, a vote, of course, but maybe an ill-informed vote, but just, it was a political
But do you also
decision.
see it as an opportunity, not just as something which is problematic? Maybe it opens up new avenues for development.
Well, in 5 years' time, this is all going to be fine. But right now, they're in the eye of the storm, and particularly this week, it's an absolute mess. But it will sort itself out, and there are plenty of other countries in Europe that are not part of Europe. They're geographically part of Europe, they're not part of the European Union. So everybody will survive, and no lives are going to be lost in this issue, but an awful lot of probably grey hairs and that. But I mean, I think, of course, there will be business opportunities to be done. Sadly, at the minute, I think there's that huge uncertainty in Britain, and a lot of people are just left in a sort of limbo position because investors are not making
because
decisions.
as Axel was saying,
what's happening.
As Axel was saying, we're talking about a world which is now going beyond borders. So here we have a phenomena of Brexit, which is the complete antithesis of this idea. And that's why I find it interesting, because Pakistan is also on the threshold of taking off in terms of our economy. So in terms of economic revival, how important do you think this business summit is going to be?
Well, I think it's going to be very important, because the first two sessions have, I would not take the significance out of those, because those also have been equally important. And in the past 2 years, the situation was not as good as it is right now, yet people came in and they had that belief. Having said that, the situation has become really better, and the investors that came in, I cannot go into the details obviously, but people are going in on one-to-one sessions, signing MOUs, making deals. So a lot of business is being transformed. It's not only that it's just a summit and everyone's going to have their talks and then they're going to go back to the respective countries. No, after the summit has happened, they stay there, they have one-to-one sessions with various companies, various individuals, and they ink a lot of things, and then they move forward with it.
So you do see some practical applications taking place after the summit, and that's really important. Well, on that note, we're going to take a short break, and when we return, we'll continue our conversation. So take a short break, we'll be right back. Welcome back after the break. We're talking about the Leaders in Islamabad Summit. Axel, please talk to us more about how you, being in Brussels, working for being the CEO of a think tank, what do you see happening in the next, let's say, 5 years within this region? Now, we're not just talking about Pakistan, we're talking about CPEC, we're talking about tensions, we're talking about Afghanistan, the Americans leaving, all of that. It's really important. It's the place where it's happening right now. How do people in Europe see it?
I would say somewhere the people in Europe, they are a little bit worrying because they don't understand really what's going on. But perhaps also because they don't really understand Asia very well. And I think it's very important to create a better awareness about Asia. But also I think Asia has to work also on its own perception and working on, against the old stereotypes. But I think also there is a lot of work still to be done. Of course, in Europe, European Union is a very good initiative. We have our own work still to do. There is still a lot to be improved. And I think it's not to Europe to lecture to Asia or having opinions about Asia. We should have only opinions about ourselves and work on ourselves.
Interestingly, European Union has been an inspiration for many regions around the world. In fact, in many of our political talk shows, we talk about the European Union and how maybe we dream that South Asia could become a bloc just like the European Union, where we have collaboration taking place all the way from Myanmar and Bangladesh all the way to Iran, maybe have this one huge block of economic development. Do you think that that might be possible somewhere in the future?
You know, I wouldn't think in terms of a block. You know, it's more in the way of terms of dynamics. And the world is changing, Europe is changing, but I think we should share our values. We in Europe can learn from Asia, and Asia can learn from Europe, and we only should learn the good things from each one.
Absolutely.
Not the bad things.
Absolutely.
But I think let's go for the future, but I think also here there is a lot of work to be done, I would say, as well as in Europe, but also on good governance. And I think if Pakistan wants to internalize its economy, it should be also be careful to work, you know, on principles of CSR, corporate social responsibility, which means, in fact, improving labor conditions, environmental issues, but the company should not consider it as a cost, but as an investment. If you improve labor conditions, you improve your productivity. And that's another message. But in Europe, people become very much aware about, I would say, good governance, good principles of management of companies. And I think if in Pakistan you work on that, you're ready to be really part of, I would say, a global ethical supply chain, which is, I would say, very important to think for the future.
Very, very important. And I think that you've really, again, touched on a very important topic, and that is about sustainable development. We've seen that the entire world has been degraded as a result of many business ventures, whether it be the oil industry or the coal industry. They have caused damage to the entire planet, and that has again become an unsustainable business model. So going forward, other than the fact that we need good governance, which means getting rid of corruption and corrupt practices, but let's go beyond that, and we talk about healing the entire planet, healing the world. Do you see a role to be played by Pakistanis in that respect as well?
There's a role without a doubt to be played from Pakistan, but from everywhere in the world. I mean, this is a global initiative. This has to be a global initiative. And I mean, you know, as much as everybody is getting down on the oil companies and everybody else, you really have to look at where we are today in terms of development. And this would not have happened without fuel and without fossil fuel, because that's what we had at the time. But I think we're in this transformation of energy at the moment, and we're really shifting, and everybody knows that. And the big oil companies have certainly come on board in terms of being part of the transition of energy demand. And this, I think, for everybody, for rich people, poor people, it doesn't matter. Of course, there's been a lot of damage in climate change, but the oil and gas companies have come on board. They have put in place billions of dollars to put an initiative in place, the Oil and Gas Climate Initiative. And I think we've got to give them credit for that. It doesn't matter whether they've been brought kicking and screaming to the table. They're here.
Right.
And they're here now, and there's no such thing as too late. You know, the fact that this is in place, and this is BP, this is Total, this is ExxonMobil, this is all of the big oil companies actually saying, you know, we realize that we may have been part of the problem in the past. We certainly want to be part of the solution in the future. And they put their money where their mouth is at this point. They're also buying into the renewable economy. BP has recently just bought a big solar energy. And only last week, Bob Dudley, the CEO, talked specifically about the need for the oil companies to actually get, you know, in place and get in tandem with the new economy in terms of when it comes to energy. Because we're all in this together. Everybody wants a cleaner, greener future. They put a lot of research, money, and effort into cleaner fuel. And I think we're beginning to see that into more efficient engines. All of that is happening.
Absolutely.
We have to give them some credit, but we've also got to bring them on board and welcome them into this new transition and encourage them to make sure they put more money into it. They have the money, they have the knowledge, they have the expertise. We need to bring them along with us and make sure that they're actually part of the solution that is going to be a greener, cleaner future for everybody.
Absolutely. And this government's concern has also been, you know, a clean, green Pakistan. We've got that scheme running in Pakistan. In fact, the Prime Minister himself has, you know, very importantly taken the initiative of planting across Pakistan. And, you know, we're talking about this huge green revolution. Another aspect of farming, because we are an agricultural country, is the concept of permaculture, which is, you know, a different approach towards farming, we need to see that. We need the promotion of that sort of a mindset which talks about sustainable futures. Do you think that this particular summit and the people who are attending it are also thinking in these terms?
Well, first of all, I would like to say that I was in Davos last year and the PM's Imran Khan's initiative was recognized over there as well. So it is a very good initiative by him. And secondly, as you mentioned, yeah, people are looking along those lines and how to be sustainable, how to be eco-friendly. One of our speakers, who was from Iraq, was a young global leader. She is working on green buildings. Imagine someone in Iraq, which is a war-torn country and it has been going through a lot. She has been working and providing people with green buildings and sustainability. So there were people are thinking along those lines in our neighboring countries, and I think we should also be focused on, as an industrialist, as a businessman, what we should do and what my company is doing is reducing our carbon footprint. It is one of our key objectives. So every year we make a point to reduce our carbon footprint. Other than that, we are working with WWF, which is the World Wildlife Fund, to improve the mangrove situation in Pakistan, which is kind of not, it was in a bad shape, but we are making efforts to revive it. And the other thing is we are not indirectly part of the tree plantation, because we are also doing it on our own, but not with the PM, but we are doing it on our own because we feel that it's our responsibility as well.
Absolutely, I think that's very important. But going beyond that, what else are you hoping to achieve from this particular summit? Because when we talk about business, we say, the bottom line for business is profit. And when you talk about profits, that's where other aspects like greed come in, where exploitation comes in. So if you would like to address those aspects of business as well.
The idea of the summit was not to gain business, actually. It was to gain business for Pakistan, for economic growth of Pakistan. So that is what the end goal is here.
Like creating win-win situations.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a domino effect. If people see the positive image of Pakistan, they are going to want to invest into it. And once they invest into it, the economic growth happens. So then it's going to be a win-win situation.
So we keep coming back to the positive image of Pakistan. Yeah. And that's where I would like Axel to please share your experiences with us. You have shared quite a bit, but this positive image problem that we have, what would you attribute it to? Because as you yourself are not bought by, the propaganda, false propaganda, negative propaganda against Pakistan, why are other people taken in by it?
That's an interesting question. I think I would say, first of all, I'm very much impressed by the resilience of this Pakistan society. And that's still, I would say, the reason Pakistan thrives, and I would say is also, the basis of really progression which can take place now in Pakistan. And Pakistan should not, I would say, what other people's opinions are, that's other people's opinions. I would go for Pakistan's own values and work on those values, on the positive sides of Pakistan society, on the potentials of your society, of your young, new generations, and look to the future. That's, I think, would be the message for Pakistan. What the other people are saying, if you listen too much to what other people are saying about you, yes, then you become quite depressed. And that's not only for a country, but also personally if you are a person.
Absolutely, but it's a double-edged sword. At the same time, you can't ignore it altogether either, because that's what I think Pakistan has been doing, is ignoring what people have been saying about us and not really caring, because we know who we are. And at the end of the day, we don't care if you think that we are not, good enough. We can prove it when the time comes, and we have done that over, the past 70 years. But moving forward, we do need to change the perceptions about Pakistan globally. Ethna, would you like to share some views on why that's important and how we can achieve that?
Well, one of the very, we were very, very honored to have an audience with the Prime Minister just this week, and the leaders in Islamabad, organisers, and all of you put this in place, and it was wonderful to actually be there in the presence of your Prime Minister Imran Khan. And I was very, very touched by what he talked about and said that really there needs to be a mindset reset, so to speak. And he really emphasised the fact that the people in Pakistan, and I think we can relate this indeed around the world, we're probably all not living up to our full potential, and that there is so much more that each and every one of us can do. And even if we tried to add 10% extra effort to what we do and how we do everything in a day-to-day basis, how better we could do that. And I think here in Pakistan, and that was very much his wish, that people just looked within themselves and thought, what can you as an individual do better? What can you as a company do better? And ultimately, what can you as a country do better? And this is so, so important. Of course, he can relate this back to his days in sports, where it was about putting the practice in, putting the effort in, making sure that he was better than the next guy. And the only way he was going to do that was he worked harder, he strategized better, and he put the time and put the effort in. But I think this is something that is just so vital. But I also understand, and I talked to many of the people at the conference, and many of the young women particularly, and they said, well, that's all fine, but what are we striving for? And what is the future? And what is the promise? And how do we know it's there? And very sadly, I think, because they've been let down so much in the past, that there's a hesitancy to actually just grab this and run with it and say, okay, we're all on board and we're all focused, on that great one goal that is going to be a new Pakistan, and this time it's going to work. So it's about, I think, touching the hearts and minds of everybody, and that comes right down, to the poor people in society as well, making sure that there's inclusion there, making sure that they're very much part of the solution and that they're part of the brighter future. So that has to be done also, I think, by empowering smaller business, and smaller business even on a very small scale, to let everyone know that they're part of this and that there's an opportunity. They have to see it, and that action has to start, and it has to start very soon.
I think one of the most important things that Axel really said is that the real resource of Pakistan are the people. And that's what we want to see. We want to see investment taking place within the people. We want to see a society which is based on the values of equality and the equal distribution, or at least the proper distribution of wealth, where we don't have extreme poverty and extreme wealth and nothing in the middle. So do you think that this summit is also going to help towards broadening the horizons of people trying to come and invest in Pakistan?
Definitely. And the reason I'm saying is that a lot of people who came to Pakistan, which were invited, some of them were startups even, who wanted to invest in Pakistan because they saw the true potential. Actually, I would not take this, I would like to give credit to Asfar, who's the founder of Nutshell Forum. He is a true patriot, just like my father. And he really believes that Pakistan has the potential to even promote startups. See, we have a national incubation center which is right here, and Nest is working in Karachi. They really promote startups, but I feel there is a gap. See, most of those startups, they don't have they can't excel. So I believe if the investors come in and they look at the startups that are in Pakistan, then the true potential of these startups can be achieved.
Well, let's hope that takes place. Moving forward, Axel, coming across and meeting people from 60 different countries, visiting Pakistan, talking to them, did they share any of their opinions about Pakistan with you? What do you think that overall this business summit is going to achieve for Pakistan?
Well, I think this initiative of this business summit is an excellent one. Because why? You show the potentials of Pakistan in a positive way. And that's a message which is important to bring out. And that's also when you talk to all the people, as well Pakistani people, as well foreign people visiting this conference. You get, I would say, an interaction which is, putting Pakistan, I would say, in the global world, but in a very positive approach.
That's what I wanted to ask. In fact, Ethna, you would probably be a better person to answer this question. Being a journalist, you must have spoken to others from different parts of the world who are visiting, specifically in this summit, their opinions and their feelings visiting Pakistan. Did they share them with you?
Well, the delegates at the Leaders in Islamabad summit were without a doubt very, very encouraged by what they saw. And also what Axel talked about earlier, I think that whole concept of being a very vital part of the global supply chain, we all need to start seeing that stamp that says made in Pakistan, and it has to be there very, very a proud stamp, and it has to be there with confidence, and it has to have the backup that this, the quality of the goods has always been good. We know that. But again, I think it's also owning that the people here really find that pride and find that confidence in terms of everything they do. And sadly, I think it comes through any country. I mean, growing up in Ireland, I don't think we were very, very proud of what we did. We were always substituting our great Irish bread for some fancy baguette from France. And we were substituting our creams and our soaps from some fancy stuff from Britain. But now it's very, very proudly that this is made here, and the quality of the fashion, the quality of all of the products, that has come to a new level. That's what Pakistan needs to embrace. But the business community have a huge role to play, and they really have to be out there and they have to engage. I think the most important people in all of the big business here is to establish a very, very solid director of communications. That person has to be sitting on your board. That person has to be out there with the public relations and making sure that the message is getting out. And working together with, I think, all of the communications industry to make sure that collectively you put the spotlight on strong business, on people that are doing well, on products that are doing good. Get inside the factories, show that these are safe places to work, show that the workers have their rights, show that they're feeling very much part of this. And some of the delegates also at the summit very much talked about how that has very much changed. That whereby years ago the CEO and the key management people just told people what to do, and the workers didn't really feel they have a role. Now they can text the management and come up with ideas.
You get a sense of ownership.
And there is becoming, and I think, okay, in many places around the world it's not there yet by any means, but it's really opening that up to say, this is part of your company and you can do more, and we want to hear your ideas. So I think that's going to take time because it's a very different cultural shift, but I think it has to happen. And I think when that begins to happen here, when people have that sense of ownership and the fact that their voice makes a difference, I think that would be very, very important. And I think women have to become a vital role of that.
Absolutely.
I don't want to be the token woman saying that this has to happen in Pakistan. It has to happen all around the world. But certainly the message that came from the president here very clearly, and we need to hear that from him more and more often, and we need to hear it from business owners. And I know your sister is very much part of the family business here. Mm-hmm. So, we're beginning to see this.
Excellent.
So it's very encouraging.
We're almost out of time, but Ali, if you'd like to give us a message for our audience generally, that, what is it that we're trying to achieve here, and how can we all be a part of this process and support you in your endeavors?
Well, every step counts, first of all. I would just like to, first of all, thank everyone who came to the Business Summit. If they're listening to or seeing this, more than 1,000 delegates came in the first day, and around 900 delegates came in the second day, which was a huge accomplishment. Secondly, everyone can do their own bit. Just spread the word out there through social media, through any means, that what Pakistan truly is, how can you come in, what can you do, be that related to any industry you are, either tourism, manufacturing, services industry, just anyone abroad, because people in Pakistan know what Pakistan is. It's time to tell the world what Pakistan really is, the true prosperous Pakistan, and I believe it has the capability to become the next powerhouse. We are not even 100 years old. Imagine what will we do in the few coming years. I believe there is a tremendous potential.
Well, thank you very much for taking out the time and talking to PTV World. It has been an honor and a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much. Well, you heard the conversation, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And on that note, it's goodbye.